Hello, 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 my beautiful people. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Kathleen, and you are watching Blooming Live. This is a place where we talk about anything that has to do with spirituality. And today I have an amazing guest. I'm so grateful that she is giving us the time today to talk about spiritual ascension. So if you're kind of curious, if you've never heard about spiritual ascension, you're kind of like, what the heck is that? And why am I even here? So you definitely want to stay tuned. We have a lot of juicy information coming your way. Just a couple of things before we get started. If you're watching from YouTube, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And if you're watching from Facebook, please do turn on those notifications so that way you get notified whenever we have the next live. Another thing that I wanted to mention before we get started, I'm super grateful. If you've been following this page, you know that that I've been doing a lot of adding a lot of information and bringing a lot of really beautiful people that are trying to do beautiful work in this planet. And the first Blooming Live that we had somebody that came in and talked about just this beautiful app, which is called EchoSync. And I am so excited to let you guys know that right now, I spoke with Lindy, and she created a special code for anybody who listens to this live. And if you're interested in finding out about meditation, or maybe you just want to experience different types of meditation, pranayama, mantra, any type of meditation, she has a plethora of sound healing in her app. So EchoSync, and is available both on Android and iOS. If you are an Android user, you can get a blooming lotus, and the I is with a one instead of an I, and that will give you a 30-day trial for free. So this is exclusive for you guys, exclusive. So make sure that you take advantage of that. If you are an iOS user, you'll have to email at contact@echosync.com. I will put all the information also on the description of the video and the links, all the information, so that way you guys know. But without further ado, I really want to bring in our beautiful guest today because she's the star of the show. And I'm so grateful that we have her here. And let's bring her over. Hello, my beautiful queen. Welcome. Can you hear me? Hopefully, I know that it's been a little, hopefully you can hear me. Hello? Oh my goodness. I think we lost her. Well, in the meantime, while we figure that out, I will let you guys know that, basically, this beautiful goddess that we have here, she is she offers a plethora of work for people. She helps activate people, their DNA activation. She helps them in their process of shadow work. When I think about Ellen, I think about the goddess Durga. If you are familiar with the Hindu goddess, I feel like she's that warrior that's going out and really helping people overcome, their process of ascension. So hopefully we can get her back. Can you hear me now? I couldn't hear you for a minute.
I'm having a pardon?
I was just introducing you.
The sound is really choppy and keeps freezing up, so I'm not hearing you very well.
Oh no. Let's see.
Maybe try.
Let's try. I can hear you. I can hear you well. If you could introduce yourself and let us know about your journey.
I can't. It's frozen again on my end.
I can hear you. Okay, let's see. Is everybody else having trouble with my audio? I hope not. Let me know in the comments, guys. Sorry, but we have to go with the flow. Let me see. Let's see. This is part of the process, guys. This is how we do it. This is all live. Can you guys hear me? All right. So in the meantime, while we get her over, let's see. Hang on, guys. Hang on, hang on. Don't go. We got some amazing stuff coming. So don't leave the page. Okay, so it's Ellen. Ellen, let me see. Hang on, guys. Bear with me. So I don't know if it's her internet. Let's see. I'm texting her right now, guys. All right, Heather, thank you so much for subscribing. Okay, well, sorry about that, guys. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties. So while we do that, let's go ahead and talk about how are you guys doing today? How do you show up for yourself today? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments. How do you show up yourself for?
I'm logged in over here. Are you able?
Okay, let me see. Hang on, guys, while we figure this out.
Better. I closed the other one.
Okay. Hey.
Hey, is that
You
better?
can hear me. Yes. Yay. Okay, awesome.
Phone out. It was the phone. It was getting a bad connection. So I don't know if hopefully it closed out the other window. Did it?
Yeah, it did. Yes. So
Okay.
it's only this one that's available. I kicked the other one out. I said goodbye. You don't
Okay.
goodbye to the phone. All right. Well, for those of you guys that are here and went through the technical difficulties, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For your
Sorry.
patience. So I was just pretty much just letting them know that when I think about you, I think about the goddess Durga, and how, I don't know if you're familiar with the goddess Durga from the Hinduism side of religions, right? But she's all about protecting her children, right? She's all about going out and slaying the dragons and slaying the demons, and so that's the energy that I feel from you. And so I'm just grateful for what you do, because I know that it's almost like a frontline type work that you're doing for a lot of people. I mean, it's almost like a military type thing. You know, when I think of you, I think of a general just going out and charging and really just moving the spirit forward. And and that's work that is absolutely needed in spirituality.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know Ellen, I would like for you to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of about what you do, and how do you get into this journey? Like, I'm just curious about your journey and your process of obtaining all this wisdom that you've acquired throughout your years.
Well, a lot of pain, first of all, but
Yes.
I really have had quite a diverse background. I had a lot of near-death experiences throughout my life, probably over 6 or 7 now.
Wow.
I've had a lot of, I had a lot of mental illness in my family line early on. So I learned a lot about multiple personality disorders and bipolar disorder and all that stuff. I was always a psychic child. I was very fully psychic as a small child. And I was always receiving prophetic dreams and all that. So early on, I was the weirdo of the family. And if I came upstairs and said, "Hey, I had a dream," everybody in my family got silent,
Wow.
So they knew to shush and listen. And I dreamt births, deaths, all that stuff early on. And then I learned how to interpret my dreams, and I learned how to astral travel fairly early on in life also. And because I had a very traumatic kind of an upbringing, a lot of child abuse, neglect, mental illness, missing parents, you know, sexual abuse and all of that stuff, it really caused me to do deep soul searching. And I didn't have a mother in the home. So, and my dad was busy working, and there was a lot of issues in that environment. So it caused me to go inside of myself early on. I hated that because I felt so alone. I was always alone. I was a 7-year-old just begging God, the divine, to bring me my brother and let him beat me up again. I didn't care. Just come home. But I ended up alone a lot, and it caused me to do a lot of soul searching as a child. And it taught me how to go inside of myself and travel the other dimensions. So that was my start. And since then I've had a lot of other experiences. So, that's enough of that.
And it's kind of interesting to me because when we think about our spiritual journey, a lot of people have the misconception that when we're going through a spiritual journey, that we're going to, for whatever reason, have like a happy life, perfect life, and is everything going to be like stars and rainbows. And the reality is that it's not like that. The reality is that it could be dark, it could be a void, it could feel lonely, it can feel painful. And but that is the beauty of it, and not to sound masochistic or anything like that, but the beauty within the wisdom that you find inside those moments. And I'm sure for you is the same. I know I'm grateful for those moments. I'm grateful now that I go back and I look. I say, you know what, this was for a purpose, and I feel like that's where you are. You had this purpose this whole time. You were being prepared to help others, which is amazing.
Yeah. It was in my 30s, after raising kids and going to college and all that stuff, that I actually had a full-blown Kundalini awakening and a crown chakra opening. The crown opens and wisdom's poured in, and I got to meet God and all of that, and that altered my reality permanently, and I'll never be that woman that I was before, thankfully. And it really did change my life, and it showed me my purpose. And now all of that pain that I went through, it's not there anymore. I mean, not that Ascension's an easy ride, because it's not, but that pain's gone. I don't suffer from past childhood wounds or any of that stuff anymore. Now it's just about understanding the dynamics of the human world versus the spiritual world, so that I can stay in my mission work, which is now to assist other people through ascension. So it all did become purposeful, and now my whole life is purposeful. And I wake up and I'm doing what we're doing today, and it's like, it's fun. I get to be around people. So that joy and bliss that everybody thinks about in awakening, it does come after you work through all the other stuff, right?
Right. We have to do some cleanup.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wanted to, if you can define to me, I'm curious to know, what would be your definition of spiritual ascension? Like, for those people who've never really heard of that or understand the concept of that, can you maybe define it? Like, imagine if you're talking to somebody who's never really been through it, but maybe they're going through it. How would you explain that to them?
Well, it's kind of like we came from the source, prime creator in the stars, the highest of the high, and we descended onto this planet, right? And we fell away from our light and our truth and our higher knowing, and we have then go through this human experience, and then when we do have an awakening, or we decide that we don't like the things that we're experiencing here because there's something feels wrong, then you line up with your spirit again. And when you line up with your spirit again, you start to ascend back to the original birthplace in the stars of where you're from. So that's kind of my version of ascension, that we're really coming back into alignment with our true authentic soul, in peeling away the parts of ourselves that don't line up with that. We came here to experience the duality, but as we ascend, we start to go back into the light again. And this earth reality is actually the lowest, it's the lowest dimension. It's the most heaviest, densest reality in the cosmos. And so as we start to ascend, we start to go back into the light again. And it's beautiful. Painful, because you got to peel away all the crap that you're doing.
Exactly. So I wanted to ask you a question in regards to alignment. Do you feel like do you feel like everything is in alignment even whenever we're going through the painful, or maybe we're making mistakes throughout our journey? Do you think that that's still alignment, or do you think that that's out of alignment? I've heard two versions of it. I've heard that everything is in alignment because at the end of the day you get to the goal, and I've also heard the version of no, you're out of alignment. That's the reason why you're going through the pain and all of that. So what would be your take on that?
Both answers are correct.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Both answers are correct. We're multidimensional beings, and everything in the cosmos, especially in this human world, is a paradox. And so, when you're in alignment, you're not suffering, and you're in tune with your true self. When you're out of alignment, that's also perfect for you, because it's showing you that suffering is trying to show you that you're out of alignment. So it's also perfect for you. So
Wow.
you can't really fail with spirituality. Everything that you're doing is perfectly fine.
It's kind of interesting that you mentioned that, because I feel like in this 3D reality, especially when we go to work, we kind of we go to school and we kind of get indoctrinated into the failure type thing, right? So
Right.
so we tend to feel like we're failing at spirituality. I know I've experienced that myself, like, oh, I'm failing because I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing that, or I'm not
Yeah.
living like this. And then we start comparing ourselves to what we're
Yeah.
supposed to be doing. So it's kind of interesting. I love what you're saying, because it aligns so much wisdom that I've even received from other lines of spirituality, like the Mayan cosmovision, and Hinduism, and all of these different lines of spirituality that are pretty much saying the same thing. It's like, you really don't do wrong. You're always loved. You're always supported. You're almost like in a big school learning, right? Like, that's how I feel. I feel like I'm in this like big school learning how to ascend.
Right. And I mean,
That's
and
amazing.
so again, because everything's a paradox, that is the truth. And yet, of course, if you do things like go out and, murder somebody, you're going to have a consequence for that action. So that's the out of alignment part, where it's not in alignment, and therefore you're going to learn from what you did, and that learning is going to be painful, because when you're not in alignment, it hurts.
Right.
Your
Yeah.
pain is your teacher. If you listen to that pain, and a lot of people go around numb and not realizing that their soul is in pain inside. And that's what being out of alignment feels like. It feels like discord within yourself, even if you don't understand why. So it's not that being out of alignment is a wonderful thing to do if you're harming other people, because of course there's going to be consequences for that. But you still can't really go wrong. Your soul is going to learn from it. The other soul also is going to learn from it. You guys agreed on a higher level that you were going to go through that. And that's really hard for a lot of people to understand, that those little 4-year-olds that died in the trunk of a car, actually their soul agreed to come and have that experience, not just for their own soul, but for your soul too, or whoever else was involved. So when you can see things from a higher perspective and take yourself out of the humanness of it, you really get to have a lot of fun, because the humanness is so temporary, and we've been here many times before. So when we get so caught in that, we lose sight of everything that matters.
I am so grateful you're saying this. And, on this page, I do oracle card readings. And of course, the people who tend to go for the oracle readings or for the tarot readings, they're going through painful experiences a lot of times. And so this is the reason why I was so excited to have you over, because I think people really need to hear this. I think that people really need to understand the necessity of really seeing things from a higher perspective, or trying at least to see it, or maybe questioning, like, why is this happening, and allowing, and maybe going into that silence and allowing the whispers to come through and give you the wisdom and the answers, so that way you can move forward in the process, right? But I think it's so beautiful what you're saying, and it's right. Of course, we don't want to go out and just say, oh well, everything is okay, so I'm just gonna go kill somebody, right? Like, that's not what you want to do, right? But the fact is that if you did do it, and let's say you come into a realization that you did what was wrong, so then, and you're not going to do it again, then you are, and you can come into that forgiveness within yourself, knowing that you learned from that mistake, then you can move forward and, and find that forgiveness within yourself, right? But it's also important to understand that that doesn't give you permission to just go out, do the wrong things, right? Like, so I love that.
We have free will to choose for ourselves, but we don't have free will to choose for other people or to harm other people. And so when we start to infringe on other people's free will or their right to live on the planet peacefully, and that includes animals and planet, the planet itself and all forms of life, then we start to get into trouble, and we will have the consequence, that the balance of life is that all souls matter. So when you start to put yourself above somebody else, you get into trouble. And there will be hell to pay, literally, but not from a dogmatic standpoint. But there's a consequence for everything, and there's also, and this is where a lot of people, I think, get a little bit lost and confused. But there's also a consequence to pay when you harm your own self.
So tell me a little bit about this.
You are love also. You're made of love also, and you matter also. And so when you're harming yourself, you're also violating the divine. You'll have lessons there that you need to learn from.
So can I just share something with you? Because this is so aligned with something that I experienced a couple of years ago. So I went, of course, painful experiences. I've also experienced that. And that's why I'm in this path. And that's why I'm sharing with you. And that's why we're aligned. And, so one thing that I realized for the longest time, I had this idea of, the external world and how I was perceived in the external world. And that was my worth, right? So because of this, I was hating myself for so long. Mm-hmm. When I realized, like when I actually came into the realization within myself, within my heart, that not on my mind, because in the mind you can understand things, but I feel like you have to feel them. You have to feel them in your heart. Mm-hmm. I broke down crying because I realized how much harm I was causing myself. I couldn't stop hugging myself. I said, I'm so sorry, That's
a good thing.
Yeah. And I think that was such a liberating thing for me, because I then realized, yes, I am divine and I am love, and I can give love, and I can be, and then I need to be aware of how I'm acting towards others. I need to be aware of how I'm acting towards the people, how I'm thinking about them, how I'm acting towards them, how I'm talking to them. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I'm human, I'll make mistakes, but I am in enough awareness to know, heck, this is not right. Let me mend this right away, because this is not correct, right? So it's important to always stay, almost like do like a self-assessment. Right. Like a self-assessment every day. How did I do today? Right. Yeah. Was I operating from a place of love today, or was I out of alignment, with my spirit?
Yeah. It's called mastery for a reason. It takes daily practice, and we will never stop learning and growing and evolving. So it's, the more that we do, the better we get, and the better it feels, but we're never really done. It's an eternal thing. I think Deepak Chopra wrote a book called The Evolution of God, because we are seeds within the body of God, right? And so we're constantly evolving. It's like, it's a never-ending story. And now that we've kind of hit that bottom point as a humanity, right? We kind of hit this bottom point in our world, didn't we? Which is coming out of darkness and going back into alignment with the light now, as a collective even. And so now it's just an eternal, beautiful journey on the way back home for those of us that are ascending. There will be some that don't, but at least at this time.
And that's one thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because I was listening to some of your audios on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you talked about, which really struck me, and that was the end of that particular audio, because the guy that you were talking to, he said, we have to end it here. He was mentioning, you were mentioning how when you're always aware, even just when you're driving and you're looking at the phone while you're driving, like that is something as simple as that. But that is, practicing that awareness at all times.
The
It's
present.
important. Then the present, being present at all
Being
times.
present. Yeah. Being present.
And that struck me because, I didn't think about it that way. I never thought about it that way. I was like, okay, well, I'm just doing my thing. I'm just whatever. But yeah, I mean, if I'm not present in the moment and I'm not, really aware of what's happening right in front of me, then I could potentially do something that could hurt another person without me even trying.
It's called being unconscious. And so your brain can only focus on one thing at a time. That's it. That's the way it's designed. It can only focus on one thing. If you're driving the car and you've got to focus on the road and you're on the phone and you're changing the tuner over here and you're looking back at your kids to tell them to be quiet, you're going to kill somebody. And you can't do that. Your brain, you got to stay focused on what it is at the moment. If you're at work, if you're at home and you're working on something and your kid comes to you and they're crying and they need you, put down what you're doing and give that child attention for a moment. All they need is your undivided attention for just enough time for them to register that you care and to help them through whatever it is. And then they'll leave you alone. I see all these mothers are nagging all the time. Oh, my kids won't leave me alone. I'm on the phone, blah, 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 blah. They're just asking for you to stop what you're doing for a minute. And since they're a real life soul, give them a minute to fully be present for them. And they will be so happy. They'll go get moved on to their next little task afterwards. They just need that moment of presence. And as soon as you give it to them, it dispels all that chaos that you have in your mind. So most of it's all in your mind, right?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that you're saying this because it's something that applies to everything in our lives. Absolutely everything that we do in our lives is spiritual.
Yeah.
whether you wanna accept it or not, everything that you do in your life is spiritual.
It is.
And it has a meaning that's deeper than just the physical. So I think it's so important to remember that. One of the things that I just did recently, I was at a place. I was volunteering, and we were putting together some fresh meals, vegetarian meals for some people, to take them to the hungry. And in the process of doing that, of actually putting together the meals, we were encouraged to pray, to say a mantra as we were saying that, as we were doing that. And I cannot explain to you how I actually got goosebumps, because it was just one of those where I was like, yes, this is spiritual. This is a spiritual moment. Just because I'm putting something inside a packet and that's it, and I'm just closing it out, that doesn't mean that there's no meaning behind this. There's a meaning. Yeah. This is affecting a person right now, because, time and all that, right? It'll affect them later, but time or whatever, but it's going to affect them eventually, right? So it's just one of those things that everything that we do, always staying in that mantra. So I don't know if you can see on the back, I have those records back there. So these are records that I started painting when I was going through my process of self-discovery. And all of these records that I painted, it was a sort of mantra. It was a spiritual experience, because every time I put the paintbrush on the record, I was just focusing on it. And you'll be surprised how much insight you get just by focusing on one thing. You get so many downloads that way too. It's insane. And a lot of things will start connecting and making sense for me just by doing something as simple as that, So, I definitely do encourage people on that. And I think you're so right. Everything really, truly is, everything that we do is spiritual. Everything.
It is.
Including driving.
Yes, exactly. And I think what's going on with the people who aren't at that state of consciousness yet, or that have a lot of baggage in their suitcase that they're carrying with them, they have a hard time being in that present moment. They have a hard time focusing and concentrating and all that, is because they're carrying repressed emotions and unhealed wounds. And until they heal through it, they're going to have a very hard time to focus on things like that, and even being in the present moment. And that's why the work that I do a lot of shadow healing with people, ascension guidance and twin flame coaching, but I really focus on the shadow healing with people. That was one of my areas that I was called to serve in, is because of my past and all of the deep trauma, years of horrendous depression and all of that. I learned how to heal the shadow. And that shadow, if you don't heal it, is going to cause you to screw up everything you touch, even though you don't want to. And so, because what's happening is that you're creating from an unconscious standpoint as opposed to a conscious standpoint. And as long as that's in the background, those skeletons are bugging you in the back of your mind. They're terrorizing you and haunting you in your sleep. And until you heal them,
they're terrorizing you. I know, it's like, they're on the background, like doing all the dancing. They're doing the Thriller dance on the background.
Well, you start to learn to make friends with them later.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I would really love for you to just tell me a little bit about shadow work and how does somebody even start? Like, let's say somebody that's listening to this and is watching this for the first time, they've never done it, they've never heard of shadow work, and maybe it sounds a little scary to them, right? Because it's shadow, whatever.
Yeah, I know. I get into the dark stuff. I'm a dark light worker.
So, which is fine. I mean, but I think it's important that we do get comfortable with the darkness, because in the darkness, again, within the darkness, we find the wisdom. But one thing that I would like for you to explain for people, maybe to maybe break it down for them. Like, let's say they came to you and they say, I really feel like this is calling me, and I would like to do some shadow work. What could they expect in something like that?
Well, all of the great, wonderful spiritual teachers out there, like Abraham Hicks, who's one of my favorites, they really talk about the law of attraction, and they show you how to manifest and create all these things, but they don't go in the dark side of the shadow stuff. And the shadow stuff definitely has to be dealt with in order to even do what Abraham Hicks teaches. And so what it is that you have like 10% of your consciousness, if that, maybe 5%, that you're consciously aware of what's going on in your system. Your shadow itself works, your whole system really works like a computer. So, if you turn on your computer and you have all these background programs that start to run on it, you've been uploading apps and signing in and logging into this place and that place and the other. Well, pretty soon you got all these background programs that are running on your computer, and it starts to bog your computer down. Every time you start it, it takes 15 minutes to get it going. And every time you try to do anything, it's running all slow. And it wasn't like that when you first got it. Well, that's what your shadow's doing. It's running like background programs in your subconscious mind, and it's preventing you from being in that present moment and being happy and whole and pure the way that you were when you were a brand new computer. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And so a lot of those background programs are false programs, mind control programs and false programs that you've been indoctrinated with since the time you were born. And until you heal those and correct them and realign with your true soul template, your operating system will be screwy. So that's really what shadow healing is it's helping you to come back into alignment by removing false programming and healing and correcting it through energetic work, because anything that's a false program is a form of a sin, if you will. It's against the soul. So when you start to learn how to heal and correct the things that you've been indoctrinated with that are against your soul or out of alignment with your true blueprint, then you'll have a lot of matrix distortions and dysfunction within your being. And it takes a lot of work, because we've been getting indoctrinated and false programs and trapped in the matrix system for thousands and thousands of years. We've had multiple lifetimes here trapped in the earth bound, because we've had a lot of and then every time you do something that you didn't realize was a sin, you've got karmic consequence. So you've got all these souls that have been trapped in the matrix system that can't ascend. That's why ascension guidance is so important, because you can't ascend until you clear all of that, so that when you get you're back to true blueprint again, your purity, your innocence.
So do you think that people will probably expect a lot of triggering in the process?
I warn people when I work with them, the first thing I warn them is that they will get triggered, and that they may also even have a lot of physical symptoms. I've had people have to get up and go throw up while we were in session. So it can cause physical symptoms because energy, even thoughts are energy. And when you've been holding on to those false beliefs for all of your life and maybe even other lifetimes, it's a lot of energy. It can cause illnesses and things like that. And so sometimes when we're able to purge it out of somebody, it comes out like sickness.
Wow. That's interesting. You're kind of reminding me of I've never done it, but I know that there's a plant medicine that's used in the Amazon called ayahuasca. And that's one thing that they talk about. A lot of people go there to try to clear themselves, and they go to the shamans and they try to do that. And so I'm sure for, when they do it, people who go there, they don't do it for the fun of it. They do it because they really want to cut maybe like I guess like a pattern, or maybe if they have addiction or something like that, they typically, try because they're desperate and they want something to work. So that's one of the things that they talk about is that you will go through those really, you'll throw up. You
don't need the medicine for it though. I mean, you can take it if you want, you can go that route, or some people don't like it. So you don't need it if you get the right healers. So you can extracted it out of people, myself before, and with no medicine.
That's amazing. I'm so grateful that that's available, because I don't think everybody has the ability to go to the Amazon, or maybe somebody might not even want to do that in the first place. I don't want to get into the rainforest and do that. You know what I mean? It's not for everybody.
Yeah. And ayahuasca ceremonies are generally fairly, they cost a couple $100 at least. And not everybody can afford that, especially right now. But you don't need it really.
Right. And then on top of that, the cost of the trip, which is, that. Yeah. So I was, when I discovered that, I thought that was kind of interesting. And I was attracted to that because I thought, well, that's an amazing thing. And of course, I was in the process of my journey. And I said, oh, I would love to do that. Right. But Spirit didn't really make that happen for me. And I think it's because my path, I think it's more of a non-plant medicine. I feel my path is more of a energetic path, where, with healers and Reiki and all of that. So, but I know that it's available. And I thought it was kind of interesting that you mentioned that, because that's something that, that I've seen at least that has been told, and I've seen some documentaries too in regards to that somewhere on the internet. So that's kind of interesting how it happens. So of course you're going to experience some triggering. You're going to experience some sickness. You're not going to feel happy at that moment.
For a moment, but the moment that it comes up, you're gonna feel good right away.
Right away. That's amazing.
You're gonna get a little sick for a minute, and then you're gonna be like, "Oh, that was good. Oh," and then all of a sudden you're better, because it's like pulling the thorn out of their paw.
I know.
The thorn's what's bothering you. It's causing all that pain, and the moment it comes out, it's gonna pus for a second, and then you're gonna have relief.
So I love that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, how is your experience whenever you're going through the shadow healing with somebody? How do you experience that on your end? Like, how does it look on your end whenever you're trying to assess the shadows on people and how to heal them? Or maybe everybody's going to be a little different. I'm not sure how it works, but tell me a little bit about that.
I think we're all a little different. For me, what I do is and most of my sessions are done over the phone, and I actually do it with my eyes closed. Okay. And I see their spirit body. So I scan their entire auric field, their spirit body, and I can see where they have lodged energy. I can see it in plants and people when I'm driving down the street. But when I'm in session, I generally can just close my eyes and see their entire system. And then in speaking with them and hearing the tones in their voice and things like that, I'm receiving messages from, non-physical beings as well. And I can see right away where the energy is blocked and why there's a wound there and what they need for healing. So it's all done intuitively, but I actually can see their spirit body, their light body.
That's amazing. So I wanted to ask in regards to that, because guys. So I have to say, a couple of days ago, I had a dream with Ellen. We haven't seen each other, right? And I almost feel like your higher self came over to my higher self and had a conversation. And I honestly feel like there was some healing work happening there. And I'm grateful for you. Thank you. Because I woke up and I was like, I had all these emotions. And I was like, what is going on? Thank God that I already have a practice in place to help me manage my emotions. So I went and I sat down and I just allowed it to go outside. I went outside and meditated outside by the, with my feet on the ground and all that good stuff, so allowing things to process out naturally. And so thank you for that, because I know that that you did something for me that night. So I am forever grateful. But I just wanted to share that with the audience, because it felt like, it just felt so seamless, like it was just seamless. Like you just kind of like went like boop, and it was, and I was like, wow. And then you also meant, on your page, you mentioned this thing with the dragon, and I didn't really see it on my dream, but when I saw it, it looked so familiar, which is kind of interesting to me, because I wonder, do you know if there's any memories that we may have that we don't have consciously stored in our brains, but maybe there's like a sense of knowing in our body. Is that true? I mean, do you know anything about that? Because it just kind of felt, what I mean? It's just
like cellular memory? Are you talking about that? Like, oh yeah, your cells all have memory. So even if your brain's dead, you will have conscious awareness. And as a matter of fact, I have an example of that with my mother, who asphyxiated about 4 years ago, and I was asleep and I dreamt it when it happened. So she was in a hospice at the time. They were supposed to check on her every hour and they didn't, and she I guess threw up or something in her sleep, and it asphyxiated and caused 95% brain damage. Well, in my sleep, in my dream, I was with her and I was experiencing what she was feeling. And I felt her like trying to get out and say, hey, help me. And she was trying to like get somebody to notice that she was in there dying and death was raining in on her. And she knew that. She was consciously aware, but she was 95% brain damaged. There was it all went black. Her brain was damaged from no oxygen for over an hour.
Wow.
And yet she was consciously aware. And I know that because the spirit brought me there with her to experience it with her. And so you can be totally brain dead and have no brain even, and your body will still exist. Your heart, as long as your heart's there, you can live even without a brain.
That is fascinating to me. That is so fascinating to me. So can I share a story from my childhood with you?
Sure.
So when I was 6 years old, my mom, this is why I've also never been like the regular girl, the regular kid, because I've experienced some really strange things that you can't really explain with the mind, right? So I had this experience when I was 6 years old. My mom, she was almost dead. She used to be a chain smoker. She would smoke, and then she was under a lot of stress, and then her lungs collapsed, and she had to be rushed to the hospital and everything, and all that stuff. And then she actually died on, she's still alive right now, but she actually died on the table when they were trying to save her. And at the time when she tells me her recollection of her experience is that she could see herself from above, right? She could see herself, and she could see everything that was happening, like the doctors running and like, trying to figure out what to do and how to bring her back, and all the beep, beep, beep and all that. Like she was consciously aware of all this stuff. But the interesting thing that I will not be able to ever shake out of my body, out of my experience, and I know it's true in my heart and my soul, even if somebody tells me you're crazy, you need to go to a psychiatrist for this, I don't care. I know it's true because I experienced it. She actually came to me. So I was really scared because I was a kid. I was 6 years old. I was like, okay, my dad wasn't around. He wasn't, my mom and dad were separated, divorced. So she was everything to me, right? So I was just like, what am I going to do? So I was really scared. And I remember talking to source, right? Like I was just like a little kid, right? Like you don't know what else to do. You just kind of talk to source and say, oh, what's going to happen with me? And, am I gonna, be an orphan? And I was already kind of going down that spiral within myself. The interesting thing is that she actually came to me and told me, my mother told me everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
moment, I just felt a relief. You know, it was like, okay, everything will be fine. And I didn't feel any fear after that. I was just like kind of waiting until she got out of the hospital, which is, but so it's kind of interesting what you're saying. So the body really, so the body is just really the container of our soul, and our soul is really what keeps the body alive. Of course, there's the biological part, but really the soul is really what's keeping the body alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow,
And
that's so
you can
interesting.
come out of your body and your body's still functioning, and that's what we did in your dreams the other day, right? And that's what we do every night in our dreams is we actually leave our body for a time and we go and visit other people and we work out whatever we're going to do the next couple of weeks in our human world. It was already worked out in the spirit world. So everything that's happening here has already been done, and you just got to learn to have fun with it. Because we
That's so
already
beautiful.
had our skin and made plans together. That's what we were doing in the dream state is we were making plans, right, of how we were going to work through our next time together. Yeah. That's what your mom was
amazing.
doing, was coming to show you everything's going to be okay, so your spirit would be soothed so that you can handle the physical reality of it.
Yeah, and to me, it's ever since that happened, Ellen, I can tell you, I was never the same.
Yeah.
Never the same.
Yeah.
I just felt like, okay, there's obviously something outside that I don't understand fully
Yeah.
because I was still a child, but
Yeah.
I know that there's something there, So I've always been kind of like interested in this. So, but I think it's interesting to me that we have this sense of knowing without even knowing, like without having the let's say the academic knowledge per se,
Right.
but having the sense of knowing within ourselves
Yeah.
that this is true
And
and
everybody,
following that.
yeah. And everybody has that. The trick is to learn to trust it,
Hmm.
because we do all have it. It's just that we've been, again, conditioned so much away from it that we start to doubt our own selves and our own knowingness. And that's where we get into trouble. But when you really start to trust it and trust that the spirit's always guiding you, if you just tune into it, it's really, really fun.
Do you think that maybe so for me, and at least, and you were mentioning at the beginning that for you it was doing the introspection. Do you think that that's really the best path to go, or would that be the only path to go to introspection? I feel like it is for me. That's my reality, but I don't know if there's any other paths for finding that knowledge within.
Well, no, that's not the only path. I also later in life, I had another experience that was really profound that caused my full-blown awakening. And I didn't go in, I went out. And
wow.
I had gone through all these years of putting myself through college and doing everything the humans told me to do. I did. I did the college, the raise the kid myself, dressed like a Victoria's Secret model, screw like a porn star, pleasing everybody, doing everything everybody told me to do, right? Forget about me and what I needed. But I did everything that they were telling me to do, and it wasn't working. I was broke. I was struggling. I was by myself. My relationships were falling apart. Everything was horrible, and I was sick of it. And I had my heart broken so many times that final time, I mean, I literally heard it tear open. And when it tore open, I was really in a lot of pain, and I demanded that I was going to get some answers from the divine. So I left out my body and went the other way. And I also got answers, and that's how I met God. So you can go inward, because inward's really, you have all the answers in there, and you can do that. But you can also go outward into the astral world, which is what I did. And, get answers that way too. But of course, inside is where everything is. Even entering into the astral world, to some sense, is going inward to go outward, if that makes sense.
Okay, so really, it's coming from the heart. The heart is where we have to go back to the heart, to the center, to that void, to that inner cave. Let's just say.
Yeah, I mean, your heart can be a liar, though, sometimes. Your heart and your mind both can lie, and so you got to get into the core, the roots, the core of your soul. If you just get in the heart area, your heart's kind of where your pain body is, unless you get in the high heart, because you have two hearts, right? A low heart
Right.
and a high heart. But so if you're staying in your high heart, then yeah, you're really staying in your higher self and all that. If you get in your lower heart, you get into all of the emotions, and emotions can get you in big trouble. They got me in trouble with my daughter recently because I acted right away off the heart. But you want to get even a little bit more into the core of your being, your soul, your core. That's like your gut instincts and all that, right? Because that's where the truth is. The mind lies and the heart lies, but the soul tells you the truth.
Right. And the emotions are really just like flags, right? They're just like flags letting you know, well, this is what's happening. And then kind of like they're not really gonna guide you per se, or they're gonna mislead you, like you say. They're just gonna they're just telling you, hey, this is happening, and then you just kind of like have to go a little deeper and say, okay, where is this coming from? Why is this
Right. Yeah,
going
exactly.
into the root cause, right? Like what is
Because
it?
if you're just going off of emotion, your ego can be there, and you can be like,
Mm.
"Oh, they don't love me, so I'm gonna," and they don't love me is a lie. That's an ego's lie. So you kind of have to get the balance between mind and heart, and get to hear the truth of your soul. It's a balancing act.
That's difficult to do, girl. I'm gonna tell you right now.
It's
To
why
get
they
away
call
from
it
your
mastery.
emotions.
I know, yeah. You
I've been
gotta
working on it
get in
too,
the
but
high heart. Yeah,
yeah, but sometimes I get caught up in those emotions, and it's hard. It's a process though.
yeah.
Uh, that sometimes I can get stuck in them and I get entangled in them, and then I'm like, okay, well this doesn't sound right. So then I'll go a little deeper and I'm like, okay, this is, and then I can get out of it. But yeah, I mean that happens to me. It's easy to get entangled in the emotions and in the ego, and because it's just
Mhm.
almost like I don't really know why we're like that, why we're wired this way, but it's almost like we just kind of go to that. That's the jerk reaction to go
Yeah.
there instead of
Well,
going deep.
yeah. And it's kind of like when you get where you're just in the heart, you can become a bleeding heart, and that's an imbalance of energy as well. So you have
Mm.
to get the balance of energy right, and it does take mastery. It's you don't want to be all in the mind, because then you get like really, and you don't want to be all in the heart, because then you're just a puddle of mud and a bleeding, mess, and you're useless to everybody. And most of it's emotional, which doesn't have truth in it, because it's all, it's imbalanced. You got to get the balance right.
This is kind of interesting. I was attending a class a couple of days ago, and this was a beautiful witch. She was talking about the whole balance thing, and it was kind of interesting. You're saying the same thing. She was talking about, you don't want to get too much into the emotion, because then, of course, then you get lost in there, and then you're gonna get, you're just gonna be in that, and then that's how you're gonna operate, and then you're just gonna go crazy. But you don't want to go too much on the other side, where you're just kind of like control freak, and I can't feel anything, because then then you're not really living, right? So it's just kind of
Yeah.
fine tuning that balance between being in the middle, right? Like right
Yeah.
here, which is the heart, right?
The
So
high
fine
heart.
tuning that.
Yep.
So
The high one.
that's the high one. That's kind of interesting, because one thing that I've noticed too in the spiritual world, and I see this a lot, and there's this expectation of not having emotional, like not feeling any emotions. Like there's this expectation of just being like this, like level-headed person. And then, I mean, I understand that that's a possibility for people, but I also feel like, aren't we denying ourselves the processing of the emotion at that point, if we if
Yeah.
we if we repress it, if we say no to it?
It's a form of spiritual narcissism, and it's also a layer of ascension that you're going to go through as you go through your spiritual journey. So a lot of people that are in the spiritual community, they've kind of got like, they've got the lessons of the book The Secret, right? They get that stuff, so they're like, okay, and they become robotic about it, and it becomes robotic in the spiritual world. We are one. I posted something about that the other day. When don't be a mimicking monkey about the stuff that you hear, even in the spiritual community, because if you don't have the feelings there, and you're not actually in the heart of what's going on in that moment, you're just a robot again. You're under Luciferian control. You have mind control. It's a mind control in the light work. It's you got to be careful about that, because again, now your mind's doing all the talking, even though it's spiritual talk. Chitter chatter, chitter chatter, chitter chatter, but it's all the same thing, and you're just repeating egoic behavior and Luciferian mind control behavior, using the language of a spiritual person. So it is.
Right. Yeah. So like using the language against the spiritual person, almost like gaslighting you, or
Yeah.
which I feel like it's important to talk about this because and because it's really truly important to talk about this part, because I think that we I know that I fall into that pattern, thinking, well, I'm not supposed to feel anything. Am I doing something wrong? So what would you say to somebody who maybe struggling with their emotions, and they they want to stay true to their spirit, but at the same time they want to process these emotions? What would be the best thing for them to do at that point? What would you recommend for somebody to do?
The key is what we're really doing. So even though we're going back into the light, which is what, as an awakening, we're tuning back into who we are as a high soul, we are bringing that light onto the earth and anchoring it here. We're anchoring it here in the human world. So saying that you're not supposed to have human feelings and touch each other and feel each other and hug each other and even cry and even be angry when you're going to be angry is a lie. It's a lie. Of course, we're supposed to have those feelings. That's what makes it so juicy to be a human being. Why would you rob yourself of that because you're spiritual? Oh, it hurts me inside.
This is why I love what you're doing, and I connect so much with you, because again, you're the again, when I think about you, I think about that spirit of Ma Durga. It's like, she's a loving mother, but she's protecting her children, but she's also the type that's gonna slay the dragons and say, no, this is not the truth, and we're gonna nip this in the butt. So I am so grateful that that you came today. So we're gonna go ahead and hit it. We've been almost an hour, so listen, I am grateful for you. I hope that we get to do this again sometime in the future. Maybe we could talk about other things. I know that you have so much knowledge in regards to the spiritual journey, and I'm actually curious about the twin flame as well. I think that that's a very hot topic in the world today, and I think it would be
And
really
a
nice to have
very
you over.
misunderstood one. A very
Yes. So
misunderstood
I
one.
would love to have you come over, because yes, I've noticed there's some toxicity in that regard as well, that I've noticed. So but we'll probably discuss that in another time. But Ellen, thank you so much for your
You're welcome.
time, for your loving energy, for just being there, for being in the front lines, because what you're doing is affecting every single person in this world, and it's needed. It's absolutely needed. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It gives
You're
me purpose. All that pain, I have purpose now, and I thank everybody that is a part of my journey now, because without that purpose, I was a hot mess. And so it feels so good to know that all of that happened for a reason, and that's why I'm here. So thank you for acknowledging and recognizing it, and having me be part of your show.
absolutely. So one last question before we go. What will you tell your future self and your past self? What words of wisdom will you tell your future self and your past self?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, the truths are always the same, and since there is no time, the truth is just love your soul. Listen to your soul and forget about the peanut gallery. The peanut gallery is a nightmare. Just listen to your own voice inside, and love yourself, and don't be ashamed of anything that you've ever been.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching. You can watch this on the replay if you came a little later, and I'll have it also on YouTube. So make sure that you check it out, so you can play this as many times as you wish, and get some of that knowledge from our beautiful Ellen. And thank you again. Namaste,
You're welcome.
my beautiful sister.
Namaste.